Hello viewers. So today we'll be taking topic how to frame research objective. Before getting into the depth of this topic, let me have a quick revision of my earlier videos which I have shared on my channel Learn with Harmony. I'll have a quickly recall of the video how to draft synopsis, in which I've explained the major steps which we consider while drafting our synopsis. That is a snapshot of our research work. In that, I explained that after doing a comprehensive literature review, the researcher has to frame research objectives. Now, in this video, we'll be understanding that what do you mean by research objective and what are the do's and don'ts while framing research objectives. Because this is the basic thing you have to do, because without objectives, without goals, again, the essence of the research will be lost. So today in my video, I'll be showing light on mainly what is the meaning of research objective, what things we should remember while framing research objectives, how to start our research objectives, that is, how to write, and how to have these smart research objectives. So as I always say, let's move on to my presentation and understand all these points which I have addressed right now. So here I begin with my presentation on how to frame research objectives. So now let's start with the how to frame research objectives. First of all, we'll understand what are research objectives, things to remember while framing research objectives, and examples of research questions and objectives. To begin with, first of all, understand what is research objective. A research objective is a statement which is to be framed by researcher to achieve the research aim. Now understand that we all have an aim for our research, and also with that we have research questions to be answered. So when we have research questions, so we frame research objective based on the research questions. Research objective gives us the direction to the researcher, because whenever we frame the objective, we have to have a direction for our research. So objective help us to have the direction to complete or to carry our research in the entire research journey. As you can see in the third point, it limits the thoughts. Now what do you mean? What I mean here by limits the thoughts, that we have a lot of things to do in our research, but we have to do with certain limitations also, and we have to limit our research. That means we have to consider certain parameters, certain variables, and we have to carry our research in a controlled environment. At one point of time, we cannot carry all the things parallel. So that's why objective help us to limit the thoughts, and it helps us to achieve the desired goal set by the researcher. Further, research objective is the foundation, as we always have a foundation over which we lay upon our, you can say, building, or lay upon our structure. So similarly, to carry our research effectively and efficiently, we set research objective, that is a foundation over which our entire research lay upon. Now, how do we do it? Whenever you frame, you have to see that each and every research objective should be clear and specific. Now, remember this S. Specific here I mean is that it should not be ambiguous in nature, and it should have a clear meaning. It should have a clear meaning. Whatever research objective you're writing, it should be able to communicate effectively what you intend to do. So the each and every research objective should be clear and specific. Preferably, I have used the word preferably. Whenever a researcher frame the objective or objectives, it should start with a verb, preferably, because it helps us to give again the direction to our objectives. Further, objectives must reflect the problem statement. See, in my earlier video where I have stated how to select research topic or what will be your problem statement for the research, as always been asked in our any of the research work we are carrying. So whatever problem statement or whatever research questions we raise or we frame, based on that, that should be reflect in our objectives which we are framing, so that it should also have the uh, parallel things to be considered. Like sometimes it happens that we have different problem and our objectives goes in different direction, so it gives the you can say the not the proper image to our research, and the experts gets confused that what we are intend to do and what is our objective. So always remember that whatever problem statement or whatever research questions a researcher has in his mind, parallel to that we have to frame the objectives. And the most important thing, that don't make unrealistic objectives or don't make objectives which are not measurable. So always remember the objectives should be measurable. That is, as I say, smart, so S and M. Moving further, objectives should be achievable. Sometimes, usually, what do the researchers do? They make a very vague objectives without checking it out that whether this objective is achievable or not. So, all the researchers has to clear this in their mind that whatever objectives they are framing, it should be achievable and should be realistic. We are not living in an imaginary world. So in our research, whatever objectives we are setting up, it should be having some realistic approach, and reality we should be able to achieve it with the time frame, because in research we always have to consider the time frame. Because whenever we do, maybe let's suppose we are framing objective for a project, so a project is having a time frame of 3 years or 5 years, and if you are going for any kind of doctoral program, that is also having a stipulated time period. So always remember, whenever we frame the objectives, it should take the due consideration that it should be covered in the desired time frame, or else our research will lose its essence. So in short, as I said in the beginning, our objectives should be SMART. That is, S stands for specific, M stands for measurable, A stands for achievable, R stands for realistic, and T stands for timely with the time frames. So after understanding about these SMART objectives, let's have an example here. That means a sample which because in my earlier explanation, I explained that how to start writing objectives, and usually we use the verbs. So here I've taken some examples. That is, if my research is exploratory type and quantitative in nature. So in this, we can start with to analyze, to examine, to evaluate, to investigate. It is preferably, or usually we can say. So whenever I go for exploratory research and my research is quantitative in nature, so then we use preferably for framing our objective, we use these words to analyze, to examine, to investigate, or to evaluate. Further, if again the research is exploratory but it is qualitative in nature, as we always know that usually we have quantitative research or qualitative research. So in that case, we use this to explore or to discover to start our respective objective. And further, if my research is descriptive and in quantitative in nature, so usually we start our objective, writing objective, with the phrase that is to find out, to study, to describe, or to know. Now this, as I said, this is as per my understanding and my experiences and my observations. We can have the other framing of the objectives, but usually whenever we write objective, we start it with this, as I said, with the verb. And if I see that if I want to do the exploratory research and that too in quantitative, I can use this examine, investigate, analyze. So this was just an example. Now further, I have taken an example of that how we have our research question and then how we frame research objective, because this is again a most tedious task. And whenever we start our presentation, whether we are giving the paper presentation or we are giving the project presentation or we are giving our TRC or RDC presentations, In that, usually the first thing where in which all the experts have an interest is the what is our research question, what are our research questions, or what are our research objectives to be achieved on. So here I have taken an example of from my own research only. My scholars are doing research in some areas. So I have just for your easy understanding, I have taken question, and then on the basis of question, how we frame research objective. So here I'll begin with that. If you can see in the first research question, is there any difference in the attitude of Indian consumer towards fashion luxury brands? Now in this, the scholar is working on the luxury brand, the fashion luxury brand, and he wants to or she wants to check out the attitude of Indian consumer. So the question ponders in his mind that is there any change or is there any difference in the attitude? So based on this, the objective can be stated as to study Indian consumers' attitude towards fashion luxury brands. So now this is here I'm saying the study. So I've already explained in my previous slide that which type of objective, which type of research it is. So to study Indian consumers' attitude towards fashion luxury brand. Another example, if I have a question in my mind that is there any relationship between level of financial literacy and financial planning? Now for this is the research question a researcher got in his mind or her mind. Based on this, the objective is to identify the relationship between level of financial literacy and financial planning. Here I can use the word examine also. But here I want to identify the relationship or I want to examine the relationship. So usually for going for the correlation, I use the word identify because I have to check it out whether there's a relationship or not. And we have this flow that is question, objective, and hypothesis. Hypothesis I'll be taking on in my next video. So I hope this whole thing is clear in your mind that we start with the question, then we go to objective. But here I would like to say that I may have 10, 12 questions in my mind, but then I can frame on those questions, I can club those questions and I can frame 5, 6 objectives on that. So if I have, let's suppose 10 to 12 questions in my mind general, so I first have to write those questions and then I can have RQ, that is research question, and then I can have RO, that is research objective. So that will make the framing of objective easy and most you can say the near to perfect, not the perfect one. Now, just have a quick view on this table, which will tell you that if you are writing your objective like this, some incompleteness is visible here. And then if you want to make it a smart research objective, then it can be framed like this. Take a first instance, that is, if you're writing study employee satisfaction of any organization. Now here I have not taken any name or any organization specific, but any organization, maybe in some organization you are studying employee satisfaction. So if you're writing this, it seems a little bit incomplete. But here, if you see the another, you can say column. So here I have written that to study the impacts or influence. Now you can use the word impact is a bigger word, you can say it is covering the bigger aspects, but if you can use the influence also. So to study the influence of management practice, because by which the employee satisfaction will be changing. So I can narrate the objective to study the influence of management practices on employee satisfaction level of any organization or slash suppose you're taking industry or organization. Preferably we go for organization. Then another you can see example, that is analyze the effectiveness of literacy camps on the level of financial awareness. Now here again, as I say that I have not mentioned here on what level or on what area or on what sample. So now if you can see here another column, so it is saying to analyze the effectiveness of literacy camp on the level of financial awareness of the concerned sample under study. So here I have limit the things that this is I am talking about to the concerned sample I have taken in my study. One more thing which is not here is that the T part. So time actually frame, we are not, sometimes we are mentioning in the objective itself, or the time frame we are setting it out in our title also, or maybe in the subsequent part of the research methodology, that for this period of time I'll be taking maybe 4 years, 5 years, because as I told you in the beginning that we have to limit the time frame also so as to have the effectiveness in my research. So with this, I hope my viewers must be able to understand the framing of research objectives, how to complete our objectives, how to have these smart research objectives, and how to write it effectively so as to have a clear understanding of your research work. Thank you to all.